The genome is an instruction manual. It refers to the complete set of genetic instructions required to produce any kind of life. The genome consists of information which is encoded by 4 different molecules, which make up the rungs of the DNA ladder. Usually they are represented by the letters A, T, C, and G. These are literally the letters of the language of life, and the linear information they encode in the human genome is enough to fill many large sets of encyclopedia. But even this amount of information is not enough to account for the complexity of life. The genome is actually multidimensional. The code of DNA uses what we would call data compression and is actually meaningful on multiple levels simultaneously. Not only are nucleotides polyfunctional, meaning that the linear code contains functional information when read in a number of different ways, like a sentence, with a different but equally important meaning when read forwards and backwards, but also the code contains loops and branches like a computer program. It has genes that regulate genes that regulate genes. It's able to actually rewrite itself when the situation calls for it. There is even evidence that linear DNA is able to fold into 2- and 3-dimensional structures, as do proteins and RNA, and that the architecture of this structure probably encodes for even higher levels of information. Given the astonishing facts that we have about the genome, the mystery of the genome is this: where did all this incomprehensible complexity and apparent design come from, and how is it maintained? The popularly held answer to this question comes to us via neo-Darwinism. As renowned plant geneticist Dr. J.C. Sanford puts it, life is life because random mutations at the molecular level are filtered through a reproductive sieve acting on the level of the whole organism. This is what he calls the primary axiom of biological evolution. An axiom here refers to a concept that is not testable and is accepted by faith because it seems obviously true to all reasonable parties. You must ask yourself the question, should we accept today's primary axiom? Sanford went on to say this: if the primary axiom could be shown to be wrong, it would mean that our current understanding of the history of life is also wrong. This would justify a paradigm shift of the highest magnitude. A paradigm shift is a change in a fundamental idea that once governed a group's collective thinking, and would allow us to completely re-evaluate many of the deeply entrenched concepts which frame modern thinking. In order to properly frame the idea that the primary axiom is putting forth and make it easier to conceptualize, Dr. Sanford devised what I think is a very good analogy. Imagine that you have a little red wagon. Along with it, you also have an instruction manual for building it. It's thicker than a real-life instruction manual for a wagon would be because this manual is comprehensive. It contains all the information needed, not just to put it together, but to produce and assemble all the component parts of the wagon from raw materials. Go on to imagine the factory that produced this wagon. It has a fully automated robotic assembly line. There are 2 robots, one at the front of the line and one at the end. The one at the end is called the judge. This robot evaluates the final product for functionality and rejects dysfunctional wagons, destroying them and their manuals. Functional wagons go out of the line and are shipped. Each time a functional wagon is produced, the judge makes a copy of the wagon's instruction manual and sends it back up to the front of the line to the first robot, called the scribe. The scribe reads the old instruction manual and copies it line by line, producing a new manual, and then discards the old manual. The scribe then uses the new manual to build the next wagon. A few things are important to understand about this process. First and foremost, there is no intelligent operator overseeing the factory. It's happening in a completely mindless, automatic way. Second, the scribe is imperfect. Each time it copies a manual, it makes mistakes. Most of them are very small and amount to changing only 1 or 2 letters in the manual. Sometimes it may switch pages around or duplicate pages or delete them. These mistakes then get transferred to the finished product. The judge only looks at the finished product, never the instruction manual. So if mistakes aren't large enough to significantly hinder the functioning of the final product, it will be shipped, and the manual, containing small mistakes, will be sent back up to the scribe, where it will accrue even more slight mistakes the next time it's copied. Dr. Sanford writes, "In this way, many defective wagons can be eliminated, and so most errors in the instructions might presumably be eliminated. More exciting, some rare spelling errors might result in better wagons, and so the judge can instruct the scribe to preferentially copy these instructions. The process of evolution has begun. Through this process, we might imagine that the manual might not only be improved, but expanded. The scribe might duplicate pages, and so information could be added. But of course, a duplicate page is not really new information, and will inevitably result in confusion and disruption of the assembly process. But since the judge only allows good wagons through, this should be no problem, right? We can imagine maybe over long periods of time, some duplications might happen that are harmless and thus are preserved. And over even more time, mistakes are made within these duplications, and some of these mistakes might create new and useful information. Using our imagination, we might foresee that our instructions might wind up specifying something totally new, like an engine or rocket boosters or computer navigation systems. Here we have a system that supposedly can result in a wagon evolving into an automobile or a boat or a plane or even a spaceship vastly more complicated than any technology human beings have ever been able to purposely devise. Do you believe this? Remember, the scribe and the judge are just metaphors for natural processes. They have no intelligence or foresight. Their combined IQ would be 0. Isn't it remarkable that the primary axiom of biological evolution essentially claims that typographical errors and minimal selective copying can transform a wagon into a spaceship in the absence of any intelligence, purpose, or design? Do you find this concept credible? It becomes even more startling when we realize that the spaceship was in no way pre-specified under the primary axiom, not even in the mind of God. It truly just happened by accident. A spaceship is essentially just a mutant wagon. Yet this illustration is actually the best analogy for describing the primary axiom. The only weakness of this analogy is that there is no human technology that can compare to the actual complexity of life, and thus there is no information system that can compare to the human genome.